Hello, and welcome to a new episode of Leadership Trailmix. Our topic today is trust. And the reason why the title of this reflection is Given and Earned is because I can't tell you how many times in my career I've seen this debate take place. Is trust something you give someone, like a full bucket of it? Or is it earned, like an empty bucket that you add trust to? And similar to the answer to a lot of questions in the world, the answer for this one is also depends. That means that I'm not here to convince you one way or the other. Actually, this is never my intent with these reflections. What I think we can all agree on is that since it depends, even if we see it one way or the other, we'll have to work with people that will either see it the same way as us or the opposite way, right? Well, here comes the curveball. Today I want to talk about trust that is built instead of earned or given. It might sound like a new name for the same thing, and that it all depends on what the starting point is. But I really believe there is something powerful in looking at it as something bigger than an empty or full bucket. I also think that the building analogy has in it an aspect of trust that is key and sometimes forgot. It takes time. Putting stuff in a bucket is very immediate, but building a house takes time. And if something happens and one of the walls of this house falls, it's going to take work to get rid of the debris and rebuilding the wall. Yes, you already know. I love analogies. And yes, I tend to go deep on them. Sorry, not sorry. But jokes aside, trust and psychological safety are very connected. I should probably say that there is no psychological safety without trust. And as you might have heard before, back in 2012, after having heard from over 50,000 people, Google identified psychological safety as the number one factor for high performance. This is such an important topic that I will dedicate a whole episode to it in the future. But for now, let's get back to trust. A few months ago, I watched a Simon Sinek short video. It's like a 5 minutes long video, where he was talking about overall leadership, but used two analogies that I think really apply to how I want us to look at trust today. He asked the guy who was talking to, "Do you love your wife?" The guy said yes, and then Simon continued, "Prove it. Give me the number, the evidence of the time and date we started loving her. Because you didn't love her before, but now you do, right?" He then used another example. If you go to the gym, you work out, come back home, look at the mirror, and you see nothing. You do the same thing the following day and still see nothing. He then goes on and say, and here I quote, "There is no event, there is no thing I can tell you you have to do that your people will trust you. It is an accumulation of lots and lots of little things that by themselves are innocuous and useless." And maybe you missed something on Simon's words that is the perfect segue into how we will look at trust today. He said, "There is no thing I can tell you to do that your people will trust you." Yes, you guessed right. While the trust building principles are very similar, not to say the same if you are a leader or an employee, today we'll talk about your people trusting you, not the opposite. How can you as a people leader build trust? First, what the heck is trust? Here's a definition that is probably new for you, but that I found very interesting. Charles Feltman, on his book titled The Thin Book of Trust, defines trust as, and here I quote, "choosing to risk making something you value vulnerable to another person's action." Again, choosing to risk making something you value vulnerable to another person's action. Yes, leader, I'm talking to you. Your team member is putting their career, their growth, their development, their dreams and ambitions in front of you. Are you giving them the confidence that it's worth taking the risk? Brené Brown, I know, shocker, in her book Dare to Lead, shocker again, provides a framework for us to look at the different elements of trust. For that, she used the acronym BRAVING. Today I want to focus on 2 of the 7 elements that I believe are the most impactful based on my beliefs of what leadership is all about. We'll pick the letters A and V of the acronym. A stands for accountability, which Brené describes as you own your mistakes, apologize, and make amends. Easier said than done, right? These three things require so much courage and vulnerability, probably because it's so hard. It has a huge impact on trust. Please note that we are not talking about being perfect. Perfection doesn't exist, remember? We're talking about raising our hand and saying, I messed up. Even when we think everybody knows, when we think saying, oops, was enough, or when we were not caught. There is so much impact on saying, I'm sorry. And as a people leader, more than saying, I'm sorry, explaining why you're sorry and committing to doing better in the future just puts a bow on it. Why? Because it helps your team see the humanity in you and learn from your experience not only what not to do, but also what should be done instead. Jumping to V, it stands for vouch, which to be very honest is a word I had to look for in the dictionary. In British, the word I just came up with to describe the vocabulary used in Brené's book, it means that you don't share information or experience that are not yours to share. What I love about this one is that Brené goes beyond the obvious and calls us out in a trap that we can easily fall. We think that by sharing something that is not ours to share with someone, we are building trust with that person, when in fact what we are doing is destroying trust, since we are showing them firsthand that we are not trustworthy. Have you ever left a conversation with someone thinking, if that's how they're talking about them, I wonder what they say about me when I'm not around? You know exactly what I mean, huh? Yeah, the principle is exactly the same. Okay, I lied. I can't close this reflection without unpacking one more letter of the acronym for you, mostly because it's so connected to something we talked about in the engagement and culture episode. We'll unpack the letter N, which stands for non-judgment, and again, is so related to psychological safety. In short, it's defined on the book as we can ask each other for help without judgment. And the reason why I had to mention non-judgment is because of one question that Brené somewhat asks and answers in the book. It's a question about building trust on others instead of helping others build trust on you. The question is, guess what the most common answer from thousands of leaders is to the question, what do your team members do that earns your trust? The answer? They ask for help. Yes, they ask for help. And you're probably scratching your head right now, right? The leaders polled by Brené and her team explained that they would not delegate important work to people who don't ask for help because they don't trust that they would raise their hands and ask for support if needed. I could go on and on here, but I will choose to stop and jump to our calls to action, which is actually only one today. Can you remind at least one person on your team and make sure they know they can ask for help if needed? That they are not expected to know it all, and that they won't be judged for asking questions. If it won't be a reminder, but the first time you say such thing, so be it. As long as you are ready to live up to it. It's not about perfection, it's about progress. And since this was a long episode and we drank from Brené Brown's book again, here is another opportunity to earn the book. Send an email to Miguel at leadershiptrailmix.com. In 4 weeks from the day of this episode, I'll randomly select one person who'll get a copy of the book Dare to Lead by Brené Brown. That's simple. And if you still want to talk to me, but you don't want the book, that's okay too. Send me an email. I can't wait to hear from you. That's all for today. If you know someone who could benefit from this reflection, please feel free to share it. Thank you for listening. Take care and talk soon.